Welcome to the 41st video of Old Guys Gentlemen Flippers. And today what we're going to be covering is a review of the Shiro-Goroff Tom Mayo collaboration of Dr. Death. I think I saw that Tom Mayo has a larger version of this with a knife that's 4+ inches. But this is the Shiro-Goroff one. The Tom Mayo signature portion of his design are the holes in the handle. It's blade length of 3.875 inches, although when I measure it, it's about closer to 4 inches. The edge it comes with is pretty sharp, but not as sharp as this. I did this with my Wicked Edge. Nice mirror finish on there. The steel on this is a Vanax 37, which has got a hardness rating of like 59 to 60. Highly corrosion resistance, and it was pretty easy to sharpen. Here you can see the Bear and the Tom Mayo signatures on the knife. You know, nice subtle markings. I like that. Closed, it's 4.875 inches. Beautiful knife. There's really fine machining wherever you look. Beautiful carbon fiber work on there. The titanium is all worked really nice. Got a cool pocket clip here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like wings on this thing so it doesn't block the hole. But you can see right there. So the only place it's blocked is at the very tip. It is tip-up carry. It's got a lanyard hole that also doubles as a glass, automobile glass breaker. The point, or the shape of the blade, is drop point, spear point. It's nice in that it has some flats on it, so for sharpening systems it can clamp on that. One thing that I didn't like, and a lot of Shiro-Goroff knives have this, is they bring the main grind down and with a plunge right here, and nothing that you can do with the choil. The choil should really be extended out this way a little bit, because your sharpening stone can't get at the very edge here without bumping into this, what is that called, the ricasso? So all my Shiro-Goroff knives have just a little bit of stonework on the edge of the ricasso here. It's got a decent finish on it. It's like a really fine stone wash kind of finish. It's really simple in that it just has 2 screws here. What's not so simple about it is in here you have a roller bearing, not a ball bearing, but a roller bearing system, which you can see in the picture here. Now the problem with these things is that they sit in those washers and they're free. So when you pull this thing apart, they go everywhere. And one of the things I found is a lot of my tools have a slight magnetic field on them, and it's impossible to work with you guys. You can pick them up real easily, but when you try and place them back in the holes of the washers, it'll stick to the washer, it'll stick to the other roller bearings in there. I didn't quite figure it out until I bought some non-magnetic tweezers and found out that with the magnifying glasses on and fine enough tweezers, I could pick up the very top of the cylinder for each bearing and then actually get it started in the hole, release it, and then it would drop in. But that whole process, every time I took this apart, I hated working with those bearings. But it's a beautiful knife. It's very light. It's only about 3 ounces. And there's something about it that makes it feel much lighter than like the 95T. This is 4 ounces. It's only 1 more ounce, but this feels like a huge knife. I think it's because it is a little bit bigger in this dimension, but this feels like I've got a big hunk of metal and only 1 more ounce in this one. I feel like I got some sort of slim gentleman's pocket flipper. So it's really a beautiful knife. So I think that's it on the stuff that I really like about it. Stuff that I didn't like is, first of all, it's way too expensive. Brand new, these guys go for like $2,700, and that's stupid. It's all the Shirogorov knives are very finely made knives. This should probably be like maybe a $700 knife, but there's not a lot of these to go around, and there's a huge pent-up demand for these things. Luckily, I was able to get this second hand and got a little bit lower price, but not a hugely amount of lower price. And when you spend that much money on a knife, you kind of expect everything to be perfect, and that's where this thing fails a little bit. The flipping action was really poor. I mean, right now it's just okay. What I was expecting is all my Shirogorov knives are kind of like this, where you pull this down, it's almost like there's a spring in there and you can't help but have this thing flip out. And even the harder position where you're flipping up, the thing just springs out. When I first got this knife, it wouldn't even flip up. Oops. And it definitely doesn't flip against the camera holder. But see, that gets up there, but it just kind of barely gets up there. And if you use more of a push button thing, it gets up there a little bit better. But I think with this knife, it's mostly going to be opened up on a horizontal basis, or the best flipping without flicking. If you just flick a little bit, it works fine. But if you point it down a little bit, it works great. But it didn't even come like that. I would flip it like this, and it would get caught halfway up. So what I had to do is a bunch of things. I had to adjust the tension of this bar. There was some very viscous, there was some really viscous lubricant in here and some dirt, probably from the previous owner, I'm not sure. I cleaned all that up and I tried it without any lubricant. Found out the best lubricating scheme in this thing is to put a very fine amount of nano oil just on the washers on either side of those roller bearings, almost to the point where you can't see it. Use a little Q-tip just to help out with those bearings a little bit. And then to roll against the detent well, I took a Dremel out and I basically polished the path that the detent ball follows. And then I used a dry lubricant to help it go through, and to help the action be faster. But there were several iterations. I bet I had this knife apart 6 times before I felt the action was about right. And you shouldn't have to do that for the amount of money you spend on these things. The other thing was it had a lock stick. At one point, and might have been because the previous owner did stuff, might have been a little bit because of some of the things I was doing, but the lock stick was so bad I was actually having to get in here with my other finger to pull the lock bar out. And so I got in and fixed that. What I did is I disassembled this thing and took the lock bar face on the tang and rubbed it against strap lock that I have just a few times, because you don't want to remove hardly any material, or otherwise you end up with play problems. Did the same thing here, and that improved it about 50%. And then what I did is I tried using Sharpie, marking a Sharpie on either side. It's supposed to put a layer in there that helps. It did nothing. I used a pencil, and that improved it like another 50%. So I went out and I got some anti-seize carbon powder stuff and rubbed it into this face of the steel insert of the lock bar, and also on this face right here, and it all went away. There's really no more lock stick in this thing. But you know, you'd expect to see lock stick in a $20 knife, not in a over $2,000 knife. The roller bearings are difficult to work with. I showed that early on in this review. I don't think there's any reason for that. They could use a single row of bearings or a double row, but basically have them trapped in a washer and not, it's just ridiculous to go through and individually put each one of these 28 little washers in. I love the look of the holes, but I know that's going to pick up dirt and lint that I'm going to have to deal with. But that's okay. I'll live with that. The jimping, this is a small nit. It's very well done. Sometimes they're too sharp. Sometimes it doesn't have enough grip. This one has just the right amount. But I wouldn't typically hold the knife like that. I usually would have my knife, my thumb back here a little bit, and actually right about here. So these things would be poking it. I guess I just would have to change like this, but maybe they just didn't have any other place to put it. But this jimping's not really going to do me that good. And I already mentioned about the sharpening issue. So with all those complaints, you'd think I'd be selling this thing, but I'm not, because I lusted after this thing for a long time and still kind of in love with the way it looks, and I love the way it feels. The action, while not sterling, is pretty good. You can hear the nice commanding click. It doesn't fall like the regular Shirogorofs. Well, there it almost did, but I'm helping it a little bit by doing that. Some size comparisons. I'm going to talk about the 95T. I think the blade is just about the same. This is not as high a blade. Actually, this one looks like it's just a little bit larger. This is the Hottie with a G10. You can really hear that one. And I think that's just almost the exact same blade as this guy. Something that's a little bit smaller, the ultralight neon. So you'll see that this one is smaller and also much lighter weight than the other one. That's my lineup of Shirogorofs. Oops, wait a second. I forgot. I haven't done a review on this thing yet. I guess that's for a separate review. But this has come in really handy for taking these guys apart. It's a pen. It's a pen, it's a tool. But let's not give away everything now. So anyhow, that's my review. It has some faults. I had to spend a lot of time figuring them out and fixing them. In truth, I kind of love doing that. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I kind of wanted to be able to pull it out of the box and have it be perfect right from the get-go. Because this one was. Actually, all these were, in truth, the action on all of these was just a little off, and I had to adjust and re-lube and do some other things to get them perfect. But it was nothing like this one. None of these had lock stick. So for buyers out there, be wary that the action won't be quite as good as these other ones. Probably as good as almost all other knives. And you may be facing a little lock stick. Now, if I get tired of this thing in a few months or a year from now and I sell this, you can be sure it will not have lock stick, and the action will be at least decent to good. So that's it for that. Hope it had some value for you, and until next time, goodbye.